Okay, friends, let's get started. So thanks for everyone who's here with us live. We love it when you can join us live. There's 466 people registered for today's webinar, which is a new record. But for those of you who are here, we want to know, like, is this a good time for you? Do you like us doing them live at noon? Or if you're watching this as a recording, reply to the email where you got this recording and tell us if a better time would be, like in the evenings. I'm thinking no evenings because when I get off work, I have to race my kids to activities and stuff, unless Sandy and I start doing this at like 8 p.m., which I don't want to do.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind with your feedback. Plan accordingly.
How about like Sunday at 9 a.m.?
No, I don't want to do that either. I love you guys, but I don't love you that much.
Yeah.
Okay. So inflation week. We always want to start with, well, last time we actually didn't dive too much into the economic stuff, but I think it's really key because a huge goal of this property pursuits market update every month is that you understand what's happening with the economy as it relates to trying to buy a house right now. Last week on Friday, we had the jobs report come in and we were expecting that it would show under 200,000 jobs because we're now not dealing with holiday hiring anymore. We're not like seasonal. I don't know what seasonal hiring you have in February besides ski resorts. And that's a very small part of like the overall economy. Well, turns out 275,000 jobs were added.
Ooh.
Yeah, not great news for us. But the funny thing about this report that irritates me is that they come out with this big headline number that moves the markets and everyone reacts. And then the next month, we get a huge revision down.
Yeah. They're like, oh, just kidding. Just kidding. Hold on. It's actually way lower.
Yeah, but nobody knows that because it's very deep in and markets don't react to the revision.
Yeah.
So like we got the February number and it was 75,000 jobs higher than we were expecting. But January's jobs were revised down 50,000. So it's like,
which is a recurring trend.
Yes, every month.
Yeah.
It gets revised down significantly after the market has already reacted to the headline number that came out. I don't really know what to make with that. It's just weird. We got CPI yesterday and it didn't move the market a ton, but it wasn't the news we wanted at all. It showed that core inflation or year over year on the core was up 0.1% when we were hoping that it would just be the same. So that means that inflation is 0.1% hotter right now than it was this time last year, even though there's been multiple rate hikes in between.
To slow down inflation.
Then we'll get PPI tomorrow, which is the producer price index. Our hope and prayers, we're accepting your hope and prayers as well, is that it will come in at 0.2% down from January's, which the reading on that was 0.5%, which is really silly when I'm talking about this stuff. You guys, like 0.1% is what we have to lose sleep over here and what will move the interest rate significantly. So best case scenario, this thing comes in even better than at 0.2%. And it shows that it's negative, that year over year inflation is a little bit less, at least on the producer price index, because that would squeeze bond prices higher, which would in turn be good news for mortgage interest rates. Thursday, we're also going to get retail sales. We're also going to get initial jobless claims. That's people filing for unemployment for the first time. And we're now 1 week out from the next Fed meeting, but literally the Fed futures market is pricing in the odds of a rate cut at this meeting at none.
Yeah, it keeps getting pushed a little bit every time.
But
it's still going to happen.
It will happen, but will it happen in May? Because the Fed futures market also says that's a long shot. Internally, we were being told from the mortgage and the economic gurus who make time to speak to mortgage people and real estate people, we're being told that June is the first time we could see the Fed move into an easing cycle, which means start cutting rates. But what I thought was really interesting is Jamie Dimon, he's the CEO of Chase, JP Morgan Chase. He gave some advice to the Fed this week and he said, listen, guys, like once you start cutting, you can cut as fast as you want, but inflation's not under control yet, so you shouldn't start cutting. And then even though most people, if we talk about a soft landing, that means that the Fed was able to deal with inflation. They were able to get it under control without putting the economy into a full-blown recession. And by full-blown recession, we mean job loss recession. That's the kind of recession that people talk about, that they feel. A lot of recessions happen and people don't even notice it. But a job loss recession is the one that makes the news that you hear people talking about that would be major on the campaign trail. A lot of people have been talking that the odds of that actually happening are very low, that we will have that they think with 70 to 80% certainty that we will have a soft landing. We'll tackle inflation without a full blown recession. But Jamie Dimon said the odds of that are actually less than half. He thinks it's like 30 to 40% that we avoid a recession. So if he thinks that we're headed to a recession, then all of what I just said about inflation numbers not being great for interest rates, a recession would be good for interest rates. Because if we're in recessionary times, then the Fed, when they do start cutting, would cut fast and aggressively to get us back down because they never don't have a knee-jerk reaction to this kind of stuff. All that being said, I'm noticing that people are a lot less rate focused. So does size even really matter?
I mean, I would say yes, right? We care about that payment. And when does size not matter? I mean, yeah, you know I'm right.
Just let me make my point here. Yes,
Right.
the monthly payment does matter. But the interest rate, I think, doesn't. So that's where I'm saying size doesn't matter.
Okay, I agree.
Everyone knows size matters, Sandy. But on the interest rate, I'm noticing people being less rate focused because they're done with trying to time it.
Mhm.
If you, let's think about it. Let's say you wanted to buy in 2022, well, like a lot of people did. We knew we had 1.7 million household formations. A lot of people wanted to buy in 2022. And then all of a sudden, everything went to shit real fast with interest rates. So they're like, I'm just going to wait. They're still waiting.
Yep.
They waited 6 months of 2022. They waited all of 2023. And what I've noticed into 2024 is they're done waiting. So when I get calls from people, they're a lot less focused on like, what's the interest rate? How do I wrap my brain around a 7% interest rate? They've already done it. They've made their peace with it. So the conversation that I think is interesting to be having is, does that mean sellers will make their peace with it too and start listing their houses for sale because they're sick of being trapped in a house they don't like? Because if they do, that's a beautiful window of opportunity for everyone who's trying to buy right now. If we see a slight uptick in inventory because sellers have had it with waiting for a better interest rate before they move, and we're now in spring, summer buying season anyways, when there usually is a slight uptick in inventory, and we have a fraction of buyers who have just made their peace with current interest rates, that fraction of buyers is about to get a really good deal and have more houses to choose from.
Definitely. Yeah, it's going to be huge.
So typically everything I say, the opposite happens, but this is being recorded. So this could be the one time that I forecasted something correctly and it happens and we see a good opportunity to buy right now. All that being said, you guys, I'm never telling you to time the market. This is my disclaimer for the legal team. Trying to time the market is like trying to catch a falling knife. You're going to bleed. Don't do that. Get with your mortgage advisor, get with your real estate advisor. Figure out what your goals are, the best way to get from point A to point B for you specifically, and don't try to time the market. But if I was right, I will post about that a lot.
As you should. Well, and that's the thing too, is there's opportunity in every market, depending on your goals, your timeline, and what the specific market dynamics are. You can get a deal in any market. So like she said, don't time it, but figure out what makes sense for you.
And it's good to stay apprised of what
Yeah.
we're forecasting.
Yeah. Okay, so next we want to talk about AUS says yes. So you may hear mortgage professionals talk about AUS, submitting your offer.
What is AUS?
What is AUS? So this is automated underwriting system. It is the algorithm that every mortgage company has to use to underwrite their mortgages. So we don't make up the rules. The underwriters don't even make up the rules. They are using this format to underwrite the mortgages specifically to government guidelines. This goes for conventional, FHA, VA, USDA. All of these things have standards.
And even jumbo, a lot of those loan programs fall back on AUS.
Yeah, definitely. So these are put out by Fannie and Freddie, which is a government sponsored enterprise designed to quote unquote enhance the flow of credit to specific sectors of the US economy. Thanks,
She's so
Investopedia. Okay, so basically it's an algorithm. So we talked about that. So when you put junk in, you get junk out, right? So that's why we can get creative with improving your credit score, or maybe we add a little reserves, or maybe we increase your down payment or add a cosigner. There are a lot of factors that influence the outcome of said algorithm. So when we put in good results, we can get better things. This is also how you get an appraisal waiver. So if you are looking at a house with a conventional loan, putting at least 20% down, we have clients all the time that don't have to have an appraisal because this algorithm analyzes comps that have recently sold in the area and says, yep, we feel comfortable lending up to 80% of this purchase price, no appraisal needed. So a lot of misconception about that and always kind of interesting to kind of go over that.
Sandy loves AUS because it helps her sleep at night.
Yes. I'm very detail oriented. I like to check all the boxes. So, um, okay. So the next kind of piece of this leads into affordability. Because affordability has been harder recently in the last couple of years, we don't get to be quite as conservative with pre-approving people. So we might be pushing that debt to income ratio a little bit higher. We
When you
might
first
be
started, what did I tell you was the max DTI?
50,
No,
45,
43.
43. It's 55 now,
We used
guys.
to pre-approve people up to 43%.
Right.
That's what we'd put in our Encompass, which is our loan software. And I taught her because she didn't do mortgages before. I was like, you're
Yeah.
only going to take their DTI, which is the sum of their monthly bills right now, plus the new mortgage payment up to 43%. Those days have sadly gone.
Yeah.
We now,
I forgot we even did this.
now we pre-approve people up to 50% because interest rates are higher and monthly payment is higher. And I will probably get heat for saying this, but I'm okay with some people being house poor because otherwise they're blowing their money on stupid shit. I'm going to go on tangent now.
Go for it. Yeah.
So all I'm seeing right now, like last night I was talking to a friend and she's like, I'm going to vote for Trump because the economy's in the shitter. And I was like, well, let's not get political on property pursuits. But I have to correct you. The economy is not in the fucking shitter. I read about that all day, every day, which is why the Fed can keep raising interest rates because the economic reports do not show that the economy is in the shitter.
Yep.
However, when I talk to people, they feel like it is. They feel like they have stagnant wages, like they don't.
Inflation hurts.
They're feeling the impact of inflation. They're not feeling like what these numbers on the report say. And if you get our weekly update, I talk about this all the time with what economic data came out that week and what it actually feels like as boots on the ground talking to people and being inside their finances, up deep into their butt in the finances. So when I'm talking to them and having these very personal conversations with them, they don't feel like the economy's great, just like my friend that I was talking to last night. But the data shows that it is. Here's what I'm seeing in real life. Consumer debt is sky high. Savings rates tanked so low. There's nobody's saving money. People won't stop spending money on the things that other people see. They are so scared of anyone noticing that they're hurting that they won't stop spending money. It's the keeping up with the Joneses thing that I've talked about before. To keep up with appearances, they keep spending, they keep vacationing, they keep swiping. And that's why the inflation numbers are staying high, even though people can't afford the shit that they're spending money on. To bring it back now on track, I think some people should be house poor. I need you to stop spending money on flying to some exclusive ass resort that you will not have anything to show for when you get back, or from hitting every music festival this summer, or from buying a designer bag so that everyone thinks you're rich when really in reality you just blasted through the last bit of savings you had and then put the last $1,000 on a credit card. I would rather you be a little bit house poor. I would rather you be building appreciation and amortization gains and stacking pennies that way than blowing money on shit you can't afford. Because what I'm seeing about the consumer today is that they are not regulating their spending the way they should be. And the inflation reports support my theory on this.
Yep. And buying a home is a forced savings account, right? You're going to make that payment and you're going to be building that equity, paying that loan down, all those great things she just mentioned. So,
Because if you really have the worst case of keeping up with the Joneses, you're not going to want to lose your house.
well, in general, yeah.
That just gives Sandy anxiety.
Yeah, I was like, don't ever do that. Okay. So speaking back to the automated underwriting system, we're needing to get more creative. So we might be using a grant program. We might be looking at structuring with the seller credit. We might be doing a manual underwrite. So basically what that means is we run the algorithm, we get the results, doesn't quite approve, but if we go through a few extra hoops, We can get a manual underwrite. It's just scrutinized a little more closely, but we can do that and still get the deal done. So it's really important to work with a mortgage team who's looking at the whole the holistic scenario to find creative solutions and figure out how to make it happen, even if your credit's not perfect and, there's ways to make it happen.
That's doing 20, definitely. Let's pause here, you guys, to let you know that you don't have to wait for this monthly webinar podcast. You can follow us on socials and witness it live in real life every day. We put a lot of work into keeping you apprised of new loan programs, what's happening with the economy, what we're seeing, and tips, just straight up money hacks on our social media. So follow us on Instagram. That's where we both show up the most and most consistently. And we'll keep in touch with you in between property pursuits.
Okay, so we want to talk about a success story. So you may have heard us raving about seller credits, and they have been amazing in structuring deals lately. There's something that not a lot of people know about VA loans and, well, all loans in general. There's caps. You can't get a seller credit more than X percent of the purchase price because of the way these government algorithms go. So, anyway, it's common knowledge that a VA loan can have a 4% seller cap. But interestingly,
Very
I
common
had some,
knowledge.
yeah, 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 people will tell you like 4%. Oh, okay. So, anyway, I had some clients get into contract, I don't know, a month and a half ago, and they got a killer seller credit from the builder. And I was like, well, I'm not going to waste any of this. What am I going to do? So I dug into the guidelines, found a little loophole. If you have a VA loan, you can do, oh, I need to move the slide forward. But anyway, the the normal closing costs do not count towards this 4% credit. So we were actually able to utilize an entire 5.5% seller credit on a VA loan. So
That seems like the government has forgotten to update a guide.
it's fine with me.
Yeah,
I'll
well,
take advantage of
I
it.
hope none of them are listening.
So yeah, I mean, my clients closed a couple weeks ago, but bought their interest rate down to a 4.99 and covered other closing costs and actually got a partial refund of their earnest money deposit. So it was a huge win and something that should definitely be utilized on VA loans moving forward.
VA loans also let you let the seller pay off your debts to qualify.
That's really cool too. Okay, that was our success story. So next we want to talk about interest. So there's a couple types of interest. The main ones are going to be simple and then compound, and then they can either be calculated daily or annually. So,
I love making Sandy talk about the hard things.
yeah, I feel like the economic updates the hard part. So I'll talk about interest all day long. I find it quite interesting.
Nerd. She's a nerd.
I know. Okay. So when we talk about compound interest, this is what you'll hear about, right? Invest in your 401k because compound interest will help you have millions of dollars when you retire. And that's true. That's because when you invest in your 401k or some sort of investment account that will give you compound interest, you're earning interest on your initial investment, and then you're earning interest on that initial investment plus the interest you just earned. So it has this compounding growth effect.
Michelle has a
Moving
question.
forward. Go ahead,
I have
Michelle.
a comment, Harmony. She might want us to go back a little bit because she says seller pays off VA debts to qualify? Question mark, exclamation point.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. Let Sandy finish the interest thing. But yeah, I'll fill you in, Harmony.
So aggressive.
Well, I'm very excited about this. Someone had something about what I had to say in that bit.
Yeah, it's really cool, actually. Anyway, so compounding interest is awesome when you are the investor putting that towards your investment. So the more frequently it compounds, the more you make. Conversely, if you take out a loan that has compound interest, you are going to pay more because you're paying more interest on the amount that accrued. So anyway,
Yeah.
then we talk about simple interest, which is just calculated on the original loan amount. So it actually is pretty simple. If you invested $1,000 and then you earned interest on that $1,000, then the next month you have more money in that account, but you're still going to earn interest on your original $1,000. So that's basically how that works. If you take out a simple interest loan, you will pay less on that type of loan. What's a little bit confusing is how mortgage interest is calculated. It's actually a simple interest loan too, but it's confusing because of the way it's amortized. So you pay the fixed amount of interest over the entire life of the loan. unless you pay extra on your mortgage every month. So then
The whole formula has to be
the
recalculated,
whole formula is recalculated because now you owe less. So it's being calculated on that lesser amount.
which is why people love biweekly payments.
Yeah, exactly. So, but if you pay your mortgage payment late, don't ever do that. If you pay your mortgage late, they're not adding more interest to the next month that you owe because it's a simple interest loan. You're paying interest on the original loan balance that you made. So if you Google this, there will be conflicting answers all over the place, but it is a simple interest loan that actually your principal payments is what's compounding, which is why if you pay it off faster, you know, pay less interest over time. So kind of confusing. If you guys have questions, let us know. But we'll switch back to the VA thing.
Well, and also with the amortization thing that you were just talking about before we switch, when you pay, because that makes a lot of sense. I like how you explained this all because you explained it in terms of earning interest, which is easy to wrap your brain around, and then you just flip it for how you're paying interest. So I think that's really, if I could figure it out, then I'm hoping, I think it's positive that everybody else will understand too.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing. Sorry. And the biweekly payments. So there's two reasons that that's so effective. One, because you're paying earlier on it, and so there's less interest owed. But two, if you pay biweekly, you're sneaking in 13 mortgage payments per month. If you pay every other
Per
week,
year.
yeah, there's 26 of those. So you're paying, you know, 13 mortgage payments essentially, 26 half payments. So that there's two reasons that that's super effective. And typically your mortgage servicer will have an actual plan that you can go on. So you can sign up, enroll, they'll auto do it for you. It's so easy. So anyway, that was my last thing on that.
And what she's saying is how the principal is compounding when you're doing that. This is important to know about your mortgage because a lot of times when you hit year 5 to 7 on a 30-year fixed, you're flipping now to paying more principal than interest each month, which means to refinance, the total cost analysis is even more important. I can use myself as an example. I forgot to refinance myself in 2020 during the pandemic when interest rates were in the twos, and my husband was livid. But then I did a total cost analysis and our interest rate was 3.25%. And we were 7 years into that loan. So even if we could have refinanced to the 2.875, which is about as low as it ever got on a 30-year fixed, it wouldn't have made sense for us because of restarting a 30-year term and the amortization schedule when we had flipped into a point in our mortgage where we were paying more principal than interest. But we run a total cost analysis for every single client on a refinance so that you can know what your true net savings are going to be, and avoid that mistake. It just bailed me out because I had forgotten.
That works out.
Back to the VA thing. I did that a couple years ago, 6 years ago. I had a client he's a veteran. He was buying a property. The seller was willing to give us a pretty large concession, and we had to use some of it to pay off his debts. We could use seller funds to pay off the veterans' debts in order for their DTI and residual income to work, which is really cool. And thank you to our veterans. You deserve that.
Yeah, VA loans are so cool and they definitely deserve that. Oh, yeah, I forgot about this slide. So this is just a little graph showing you the difference between compound interest and simple interest. So you'll see that the simple interest is like a flat line essentially, right? We're just doing interest on the original amount, whereas compound can grow
very fast.
Yeah. So again, that's why when you're investing, you want something that's compounding. And when you're borrowing money, ideally you want something that's simple interest. So
like a mortgage,
yeah.
Simple interest. Okay, you guys, that's everything for today. Thanks for bearing with us through a more rogue episode of Property Pursuits. But if you wanted personalized advice, you wanted to sit down with us one-on-one, whether you're a realtor or a buyer or an investor, and you want us to help, customize your strategy or even just shoot the shit more one-to-one because you want to give us your thoughts on what we said today, we'd love to do that. Use the QR code to scan to make an appointment with either one of us, and we'll catch you next time.